One late-night call, one woman almost invisible to the world, and a billion-dollar decision hanging by a thread. Most of us pass by the people who clean our offices and schools without a second glance. We see the uniform, the cart filled with supplies, the quiet figure moving in the background, and yet we rarely stop to wonder about the life behind those tired hands. Tonight's story is about one of them, a woman who thought her shift would be just another long night, but then she walked straight into a moment that would shake one of the nation's most powerful corporations. Her name was Marsha Jennings, 56 years old, from Riverbend, Illinois. She wasn't flashy, she wasn't loud, she carried herself with quiet dignity, even when the world treated her like she was invisible. She had raised 3 children mostly by herself, often working 2 or 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. After all, she never complained about the endless commutes, the late buses, the aching feet. She carried her burdens like heavy grocery bags, firm grip, no nonsense, never asking anyone else to hold the weight. That night she was making her rounds on the 27th floor of Northgate International's headquarters in Brookdale City, wiping desks, emptying trash bins and offices where people earned in a week what took her an entire month, 7 years on the night shift, always on time, always finished before sunrise. Still, that night felt different, too quiet. The glass windows stretched from wall to wall, giving her a sweeping view of city lights shimmering below, scattered like stars across the river. The hum of the air conditioning filled the silence, but then came something else. The phone. It rang once, then again, and again, sharp and relentless. Marsha froze, her eyes fixed on the polished desk of the chief executive, the screen glowing in the dark, flashing a number with a foreign code she didn't recognize. Her hand hovered over the receiver, then pulled back. "Don't do something foolish," she whispered, but the ringing wouldn't stop. It was as if someone, somewhere, was daring her to answer. And in that empty high-rise office, with the city asleep below, Marsha Jennings's life was about to change forever. Because when she finally picked up that phone, she wasn't just cleaning anymore, she was stepping into a conversation that would decide the fate of a billion-dollar deal. This changes everything. The real beginning of this story isn't the ringing of a phone. It starts with Marsha herself, who she was, how she lived, and why she was the last person anyone would expect to stand at the center of saving Northgate International. Marsha's life never followed an easy path. She was born and raised in Riverbend, in a neighborhood where you learned early how to stretch every dollar and make the most of what little you had. Her father worked at the steel mill until his body gave out. Her mother cared for other people's children just to keep food on the table. They weren't poor in spirit, but money always slipped through their fingers like water, and Marsha grew up knowing that nothing came easy. By her teenage years she already knew college wasn't going to happen. Instead she worked wherever she could, diners, laundromats, grocery aisles, always hustling, always keeping just enough cash in her pocket to survive the week. Then came the children, 3 of them, each with their own dreams and struggles, their father drifting in and out, present some weeks, gone the next, excuses never adding up. Marsha learned quickly not to depend on help that wasn't coming. Cleaning work became her lifeline. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Steady meant rent was paid. Steady meant her kids could eat. She could clock in, do her shift, and go home without anyone breathing down her neck. It was honest work, even if the world barely noticed. Her children were grown now. 2 daughters in their 30s, a son just past 40. They had families of their own. They called her sometimes, though visits were less frequent than she wished. And on those long bus rides back to her small apartment on Foster Street, loneliness crept in, but she always reminded herself with quiet resolve, better lonely than powerless. At work she kept her head low, never one to linger in the break room or trade gossip with the other staff. She moved like clockwork, vacuuming halls, polishing glass doors, hauling away towers of empty coffee cups left by executives too busy or too important to clear them themselves. Yet in her silence, she noticed things. She noticed the way junior employees stiffened when Victor Langston, the Billionaire CEO, walked past. She noticed how executives softened their tone with clients but barked at their assistants. She overheard meetings dragging late into the night, words echoing through the hallways, contracts, deadlines, projections. She never claimed to understand it all, but after years of listening, some of it stuck. That night, before the phone ever rang, Marsha was doing what she always did, emptying bins, aligning chairs, wiping down surfaces. She paused for a moment in the CEO's office, catching her reflection in the glass wall that stretched floor to ceiling, the city lights glittering behind her. And sometimes she wondered, did anyone in this building even know her name? To them she was just a cleaning lady, invisible, replaceable. She sighed, tugging the bag from the bin. Her knees ached, her hands were rough from years of bleach and scrubbing pads. And yet, she kept moving. She thought about the bills stacked on her kitchen counter, rent, utilities, the school fundraiser her youngest granddaughter was so excited about, the one she wished she could help with, but couldn't afford this month. Marcia wasn't the type to complain out loud, but the weight of it pressed in during the quiet moments. Still, she kept moving. That's what she always did, one small step at a time, forward, even when it felt impossible. But life rarely waits until you're ready before it tests you, and Marcia's test was already glowing on that blinking phone. Northgate International wasn't just another company. To the city of Brookdale it was a symbol of wealth, innovation, and power. Its headquarters towered downtown, a steel and glass giant that looked like it could swallow smaller buildings whole. For most people, stepping inside felt like entering another world, but for Marcia it was simply her workplace. She didn't care about the polished marble floors in the lobby, or the security guards in tailored suits, or the rich aroma of imported coffee drifting from the executive lounge. What mattered was finishing her shift on time, and catching the last bus home. Even so, she noticed things, the way the building felt alive during the day, voices rushing, deals being made, heels striking marble, printers running nonstop, and then how hollow it became at night. In that silence every sound grew sharper, a chair creaking, a phone buzzing on a desk, her mop bucket wheels echoing down the hall like footsteps in the dark. The executive floor was the strangest of all. Everything was larger, brighter, more expensive. Desks like sculptures, chairs that looked like they belonged in an art gallery, even the trash bins were polished metal instead of plastic. Sometimes Marcia joked to herself, the pens on those desks probably cost more than her week's pay. She had only seen Victor Langston, the CEO, a handful of times, mid-50s, tall, salt and pepper hair, wrapped in tailored suits that made him look untouchable. He wasn't loud, but when he spoke people leaned in, everyone listened. She remembered once stepping into the hallway just as he passed with two assistants. He didn't glance at her, not even once. It wasn't rude exactly, it was as if she didn't exist at all. That was life inside Northgate International, Marcia doing her job, making everything spotless, for people who would never notice her. But she noticed them. She overheard fragments of conversations about clients in Singapore, investors in London, suppliers in Brazil. She learned names she'd never meet, names whose signatures moved millions of dollars. It was like standing on the edge of a storm, close enough to feel its power, far enough that no one thought she'd ever touch it. And yet, every so often, a thought slipped in, what would it be like to sit at one of those desks instead of wiping it down, to make decisions instead of sweeping around the people who did? She always pushed the thought away. That wasn't her life. Her life was steady paychecks, crowded bus rides, late dinners eaten in silence. Or at least, that's what she believed. That night something felt off. Marcia noticed papers scattered across Langston's desk, pages marked with highlighter and red ink, a glass of water half full beside them as though someone had been there not long before. She moved carefully, not wanting to disturb a thing, but her eyes lingered on the printed lines she couldn't quite make sense of. Her cart squeaked as she rolled it toward the hallway, then the sound again. The phone. Its ring split through the silence like a demand. She turned, eyes narrowing at the glowing screen, a long number flashing back at her, strange codes and digits she didn't recognize. This wasn't a telemarketer. Not at midnight. Her chest tightened. She set the rag down, staring. Curiosity has a way of pulling you closer, and this time Marcia wasn't just the cleaner anymore. She was standing on the edge of something larger than herself. The phone wouldn't stop. Ring, pause, ring again, each sound louder, echoing like a warning siren in the empty office. Marcia stood in the doorway, rag in hand, heart beating harder than she wanted to admit. "Don't do it, Marcia," she whispered. "That's not your business." She reached for her cart, ready to wheel it away, but then, ring again. Her feet stayed planted. What if it was important? What if something was wrong? No one else was on that floor, and the guard downstairs wouldn't know how to handle a call like this. She had always told herself not to meddle, but this felt different. Slowly, almost against her own will, she walked back into the office, the phone screen glowing brighter in the dark. Country code. She squinted. France, she muttered. Her hand hovered above the receiver. She thought about losing her job if anyone found out, but then another thought pushed through. Whoever was on the other end must have been desperate to keep calling like this. Her fingers curled around the phone. She lifted it to her ear. Hello. A sharp inhale answered her, followed by a rushed male voice, tense, urgent, heavy with an accent. Finally, someone answers. Is this Northgate International? This is Alain Dubois from Lyon. I have been calling for hours. Where is Mr. Langston? Marcia froze. Every instinct told her to hang up, but the panic in his tone held her still. She cleared her throat. Mr. Langston isn't here. This is the night staff. Alain groaned. Listen carefully. We have a serious issue. The contract. Someone altered the language. If it is not corrected tonight, first thing tomorrow morning I withdraw. Do you understand? Billions are at stake. I cannot proceed like this. Marcia's head spun. Billions. Contracts. What was she doing answering this call? She had no place here. No business. And yet, she didn't hang up. She gripped the receiver tighter. Sir. I'm not the person you think I am. I don't handle contracts. I don't care who you are, Alain snapped, his voice fraying with frustration. You work there, yes. Then listen, you tell Langston this deal dies at sunrise unless someone explains why this language was changed. Marcia's eyes darted back to the desk, the scattered pages, the bright yellow highlights. She remembered cleaning around them earlier. Almost without realizing it, her hand reached for the stack. She tucked the phone between her ear and shoulder, then lifted the top sheet. Most of it blurred together, legal jargon, numbers, clauses she couldn't untangle, but one line caught her eye, something about exclusivity rights. Her chest tightened. She remembered overhearing an executive just last week in the elevator, complaining that clients hated those kinds of clauses, that they felt trapped by them. She swallowed. Mr. Dubois, I'm not an expert, but I think I see what you mean. This line here, about exclusivity, maybe it wasn't supposed to be changed. Silence. Then Alain spoke again, calmer this time. Yes, exactly. The original draft never had this. Someone inserted it. If it stays, my board refuses. This is sabotage. Marcia shifted nervously, glancing at the door as though someone might burst in and catch her. Look, I can't fix this for you, but I can make sure your warning reaches the right person. Don't walk away just yet. Let me promise you that much. Alain exhaled loudly. You must. You tell Langston or everything collapses. I don't want conflict. I want partnership, but not like this. Marcia nodded instinctively, though he couldn't see her. I understand. I'll make sure he knows first thing in the morning. Just hold off until then, please. The line went quiet. Finally Alain said softly, All right, I wait, but no later than tomorrow. Click. The call ended. Marcia lowered the receiver slowly, her hand trembling. She stared at the phone as if it had scorched her palm. She had no idea what she'd just stepped into, but she knew one thing, this wasn't small, and by morning someone very powerful was going to learn she had been the one to pick up. She stood frozen in the CEO's office, the phone still warm against her skin. She should have left it there. She should have wheeled her cart to the next room, gone back to her mop and routine. But then, the phone rang again. She jumped, heart hammering, same number. This time she grabbed it quickly. Hello. Jennings, the voice demanded. Yes, she whispered. You said your name was Jennings. Alain's tone was clipped now, controlled, but sharp at the edges. Listen to me, you must take this seriously. This contract is a disaster in its current form. Do you understand what happens if I walk away? Hundreds of people in my company depend on this deal. Marcia pressed the receiver closer, her voice low but steady. Mr. Dubois, I'm just cleaning staff. I don't know much about contracts, but I heard you, and I believe you. I'll make sure Mr. Langston hears your warning. No, Alain barked. A message is not enough. You tell me. She felt exhausted, her eyes heavy, but her thoughts wouldn't settle. Every time she tried to push the memory aside, it came rushing back. Alain's urgent voice, the scattered papers, the warning that billions were on the line. She lingered on the executive floor longer than usual, pacing near the CEO's office. Normally she would have been gone long before the first suits arrived, but this morning she couldn't leave. She needed to see it through. At exactly 7 o'clock the elevator doors slid open. Victor Langston stepped out, flanked by his assistant clutching a tablet and a thick folder. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, his expression calm but unreadable, eyes fixed forward as if nothing else existed. Marcia's throat tightened. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to speak to him. But when he entered his office and froze at the sight of the phone left off the hook, her body reacted before her mind could stop her. "Mr. Langston," she blurted, her voice unsteady. He turned slowly, sharp eyes narrowing on her. "Who are you?" She swallowed hard. "Marcia, I work nights here, cleaning staff." His assistant glanced at her, puzzled, then back at Langston. The CEO's jaw flexed. "Why are you still on this floor?" Her palms were slick with sweat, the rag trembling in her grip. "Sir, last night the phone wouldn't stop ringing. A client from France, Alain Dubois." He sounded desperate. He said the contract had an exclusivity clause that wasn't supposed to be there. He was ready to walk away. I told him to wait until you came in this morning." The assistant frowned, flipping through the folder in his hands. "Exclusivity clause, that wasn't approved," he muttered, scanning page after page. Langston's gaze sharpened. "You answered my phone." Her stomach dropped. "Yes, sir, I know I had no right, but if I hadn't he would have pulled the deal. I couldn't just ignore it." Silence thickened the room. For a moment Marcia was certain this was the end. She would be fired, escorted out, badge stripped from her chest. Then the assistant spoke again, urgent. "She's right. The exclusivity clause wasn't in the draft I reviewed. Someone must have slipped it in at the last minute." Langston's face hardened. He turned toward the window, his reflection cast in the glass, then spun back sharply. "Get Dubois on the line, now." The assistant rushed to the phone, dialing with quick, precise fingers. Langston stood tall, his presence commanding the room, yet his eyes flicked back to Marcia. "And you, what exactly did you say to him?" Her knees weakened. "I told him not to walk away yet. I said you'd want to fix it. I promised he'd get answers this morning." Langston studied her in silence for several long seconds. Then the call connected, Alain's voice exploding through the speaker. "Langston, finally, do you have any idea what kind of night I've had?" Langston raised a hand. "Mr. Dubois, first let me say this.
Thank you for your patience, Langston said evenly. You've been made aware of the issue. You've been made aware, Alain snapped, from who? Langston has gaze shifted toward Marcia, from someone he should have been paying attention to a long time ago. Marcia has had skipped. Langston has tone hardened with authority. That clause should never have been included. It will be removed immediately. The deal continue exactly how we agreed. On the other hand, Alain exhaled. Calm now, good, then we proceed. The next time Langston, he expect more respect. He understood. Langston replied firmly. You have my word, it won't happen again. The call ended, silence hanging in the office. The assistant bolted out, already dealing legal, leaving only the CEO and Marcia. Langston turned toward her. His eyes softened now. You saved this company from disaster, Ms. Jennings, do you realize that? Her lips parted, but no word formed. He stepped closer. Most people here wouldn't have had the courage to do what you did last night. You answered when no one else would, and because of that we still have our largest client. Something stirred in Marcia's chest. Recognition, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in years, but recognition was only the beginning, because Langston's next word would change how everyone in that building saw her. For years Marcia had walked those halls like a shadow. People saw the mop, the car, the uniform, but not her. Now standing in the center of Victor Langston's office, she felt the opposite. His eyes locked on her, and for once she wasn't invisible. He folded his arms, passing slowly. Do you understand the magnitude of what you did last night? Marcia shifted nervously, gripping the rag in her hand like a shield. He just answered a phone, that is all. Langston shook his head firmly. No, you calmed one of the two guest clients we've ever had. Alain Dubois doesn't wait for anyone, and doesn't forgive mistake, yet you managed to hold him steady long enough for me to correct this. Do you know how hard that is? Her voice came keep steady, he didn't want him to feel ignored, people don't like that. Langston paused, studying her if truly seeing her for the first time, you're absolutely right, and it's ironic isn't it, someone we've overlooked in this building just talked me a lesson he should have known long ago. Marcia blinked, unsure she'd heard him correctly. HIS assistant reappeared in the doorway, rattling off details about the legal team scrubbing the clothes. Langston lifted a hand, not now, close the door. The assistant hesitated, then obeyed, leaving them alone. Langston leaned back against his desk, his tone gently, tell me Ms. Jennings, how long have you worked here? 7 years, she answered quickly. 7 years they repeated under his breath, 7 years and I've never once asked your name, never once looked beyond the uniform. Marcia stood silent, unsure if she should reply. A straightened, that ends today, you reminded me that everyone in this building matters, not just the ones with office and title, everyone. Her eyes burned with tears, she wasn't used to words like that being spoken to her. We want to offer you something, Langston continued, not charity, recognition, you've shown instinct most of my executive lack, I want you to sit with our staff this week, share what you've observed, some team the clearest perspective comes from the people no one thinks to listen to. Marcia's mood went me, sit with executive. He gave a faint smile, yes, you. For a moment she thought of all the nights spent unseen in this office, scrubbing coffee stain, sweeping crumb, overhearing fragments of conversation that reminded her how far she was from that world, and now here she was, being invited in. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say yes, Langston replied simply. Her hand trembled, yes. He extended his hand, she hesitated, then shook it, his grip was firm, but more than that, it carried respect, real respect, not pity. You've talked me something important, Ms. Jennings, Langston said, title down the Finworth, action do, and last night you acted when no one else did. For the first time in years Marcia felt something lift inside her, she wasn't just the cleaning lady anymore, she was Marcia Jennings, the woman who answered the call that saved Northgate International. But stories like this don't end with shack, they end with lessons that linger long after the moment pass. In the weeks that followed, word spread quietly through Northgate's hall, executive whispered about the deal that nearly fell apart, about the client who almost walked away, and about the cleaner who picked up the phone when no one else did. Marcia never bragged, she never told her children or her neighbor, to her she had simply done what felt right, but the shift was undeniable, people who once brushed past her now stopped to greet her by name, some even asked her opinion, curious about what she had noticed during her long night in the building. Langston himself made a point to acknowledge her every time he crossed her path, he didn't shower her with rich or new title, but the respect he gave her was worth more than anything else. For once in her life, she wasn't invisible. One Friday evening, as she stood by the tall glass windows waiting for her bus, she gazed out at the city lights shimmering across the river, she thought about that phone call, about how easily she could have ignored it, how easy it would have been to tell herself, that's not my job. But she hadn't, and because she acted, everything changed. Some team life doesn't give you warning, it doesn't hand you a neat invitation to prove your worth, it comes suddenly, in the form of a ringing phone, a moment that seemed too small to matter. What you chose to do in that moment, that is what defines you. Marcia Jennings proved that no one is truly invisible, no matter how the world treats them. And maybe that is the message for all of us, never underestimate the people you overlook, never assume value is written only on business cards or paycheck, respect is earned in action, not in title. So the next time you walk past someone mopping a hallway, bagging your grocery, or working a job most people overlook, remember this, you never know whose key might be the ones to save the day when no one else can. If this story touched you, share it, remain someone in your life that they matter, no matter their role, no matter how invisible the world might make them feel. And never forget, some teams the greatest heroes are the ones we don't even see.